Hey guys, welcome back to Ouch Mountain. Last time you got to see us set the new stove in place and see what great communication skills Sarah and I have when we're working together. Today we'll take you on a quick little tour of the stove, so y'all stay with us. So we were in the market for a brand new stove to replace our old stove that burned in the fire. And when we started doing our research, we looked at a lot of different stove companies, a lot of different models, but we ended up settling on Central Boiler as the brand. And we looked at a number of their models. They have at least 3 that are in this classic edge line of stoves. And we picked the mid-range. There's one smaller, there's one larger. They may have one that's like warehouse size, but really for residential size, they have 3. And this mid-range is really kind of what we needed. It's when we're thinking about how much space we wanted to heat, this was really the model to go with. I think it's gonna fit our needs. Here's a quick look at the firebox. It is 32 inches deep. Our old stove was 38 inches deep, so a little bit smaller firebox, a little bit narrower, probably about the same height from top to bottom. But at 32 inches, you can still cut pretty long firewood, cut it 26, 28 inches and get it in there really comfortably. I'm used to cutting long firewood with our bigger firebox we had, and that's a pretty efficient way to do it. Less cuts on the log, less pieces you have to lift and move. So big firebox is handy. This is gonna be nice. We have some tools that come along with it, some anti-corrosive chemicals, and owner's manuals there. So we're excited to have it. Looking forward to get it all hooked up. So on this side of the stove is where our water connections and electrical connections come from the house. And behind this panel, I'll show you all those connections. So we had our friend Kevin come help us hook up all these connections. We have 2 water lines, one that runs to the house with hot water from the stove, and the other line is a return line back to the stove to get reheated again up to the right temperature, which on this stove is 185 degrees is the top maximum temperature. And so it loses some temperature as it goes to the house, runs through all our loops under the floor, and then as it returns, it's probably coming back at 160, 165 degrees, gets reheated and returns to the house. So here's the water coming back into the stove, and this hookup is where we can add water. So once a year, twice a year, we will hook this up to a garden hose and add water. This stove holds 203 gallons of water. Our old stove held 163 gallons of water, so it's a bigger bladder of water that gets heated, which should make it more efficient. It's going to be more to be heated here, still circulating, but it should be a good, new efficient way, better efficient way for us to use the stove. So this is the water pump that runs continuously just to circulate the water through all the loops under our floor and return the water back to the stove to be reheated. So here we have the electrical coming in, comes into an electrical junction box that we put in. Again, we kind of had to make this work on the same platform that our old stove was sitting on. So we had to kind of makeshift a few things, but it feeds the power to this outlet, and the water pump is actually plugged straight into the outlet. And the outlet is another power disconnect for the whole stove. So you can flip it on and off with one switch. So we decided to add this outdoor weatherproof outlet to the stove. It didn't come with this, but this is something we had our electrician add. It's just kind of a handy thing to have power out here, pretty far away from the house and anywhere else. If we want to run an extension cord to run any kind of saws or machinery or lights, if we want to run lights out here, this is kind of a handy little thing that we had him add on. The stove comes equipped with a light here that's easily accessible on the control panel. So the Central Boiler stoves have the chimney, the stovepipe, kind of bumped out on an elbow instead of being right on top of the stove, which I think is a better build, a better structure, just so the rainwater doesn't come straight down the chimney and kind of sit on the firebox. It's stuck out from the firebox, which would be a whole lot easier to replace the chimney than a rusted out stove and firebox. So I think that's a better system. And it has a clean out here on the end where we can clean out the chimney and any creosote that's built up. Right here on the front of the stove, we have a nifty little gauge that's very handy. So this is a water gauge to tell you if you need to add water, if the water level is good or not. And you just come to it, let the water drip out, and then it closes back up, it shoots back up. Full is about right here. So we need to add some water before we start running the stove every day, but that's a good nifty little thing. Our old stove did not have that. It did have a little signal light to say add water, but this kind of gives you an idea of where you stand. So handy little tool. So this is probably the most useful function that this stove has over our old stove. And what this handle is, this is a lever for a bypass door. And when you lift this up, it opens up a flap or opens up a little door inside the firebox that lets air come in and feed the fire a little bit. But what's really important about this, why this is such a great safety feature, is this allows air to reach the fire before you open the firebox door. Because when you open that firebox door and it's just kind of been smoldering, it's not really going hard, the fan's not blowing on it, it's not getting any air, you open that door and air hits it, it blows back on you. And believe me, you can send your eyebrows, send your mustache, it's not good because it just comes, fire just kind of comes all the way around the door. So this is a very cool safety feature on this stove. So we got the new stove going, we got it hooked up. And right now I have the door open with the fire going. That's our first fire with the new stove. Can't wait to see how well our floors, the radiant heat works with the new stove, especially how often we have to refill the stoves. So the water temperature going in was right at 60 degrees, so it's only raised up about 1 degree. It's only been about, I'll say 8 or 9 minutes since the stove's been running, so we'll kind of watch the temperature of the water, see what it does. So these new central boiler stoves come with a pretty kind of nifty feature. It's called Firestar, and this is a controller that you can link and remotely operate from an app on your phone. So like right now it's showing that the water temperature is 70 degrees. The app will also tell you when it's time to add firewood, and it tells you the temperature, it tells you how efficient the reaction chamber is. Lots of little features it can do, but all handled off your cell phone. So that's pretty cool, and we'll get used to what that tells us. We'll get used to using it, and once we start using it every day this winter, I may give everyone an update on how it's working. So in the bottom of the stove is what Central Boiler calls a reaction chamber, and essentially what this does is it gives the stove a chance to burn a second time with burning the smoke and trying to reburn all the ashes very efficiently. So a big thing that happened between the time we bought our old stove and now is the EPA, the government, changed regulations on these outdoor stoves, and they had to become much more efficient and not have so much particle or particulate, I guess is the right word, enter the air from the chimney. So the way these stoves now work is they had to become much more efficient and kind of reburning and burning more thoroughly everything before it left the stove. So the temperature of the stove water is up to 119 degrees, and that's saying 55% efficient on the reaction chamber. And those two numbers keep going up, they're kind of rising together. So glad to see 119 degrees. I think it may go up to 185 before the fan cuts off. We'll see how this goes. All right, stove's been running for probably an hour and a half or so, not quite 2 hours, I don't think. And the water temperature is up to 145 and about 75% efficient now in the reaction chamber. So that's still rising, still good, 146 degrees. We'll see where this thing cuts off, but Very happy to have it up and running now. Great to finally have it in place. We're excited you got to join us on this tour of our new stove, and we'll share some more information about it as we get it broken in this winter and using it every day. If you like our videos, click the subscribe button, hit the like button, send us some comments, and share it with a friend. And we'll see you next time on Ouch Mountain.